أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Reject hadith, you have to reject all history, Western history and non-Western history, because you're not going to find anything or anyone that goes into depth and so much scrutiny as Muslims do when it comes to the hadith. And if you don't believe me, that's what we are about to demonstrate right now. And then you can look at us demonstrating that, come to your own conclusion. Does anyone in the world go to such scrutiny to determine whether something is accurate or not accurate? Let's talk about hadith. What is a hadith? A hadith is that which was transmitted from the Prophet ﷺ, from a statement, so something that he said, or an action, a specific action that he did, or something that he approved of. So something happened in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ and he was okay with it. He didn't say that the people don't do or do not do. Or the description of the Prophet ﷺ, whether in his character, his manners, or how he was created, like his arms, his head, how he was created. So anything of that, the statements, the sayings, the actions, the approvals, all of these things are what we call a hadith. That's the definition of what a hadith is. And that hadith is divided into two parts. It's divided in what we call isnad, which is a chain of narration, the individuals who narrated this information, who gave us this information. So we say Alex narrated from Mark, narrated from John, that he heard the Prophet ﷺ said this. So Alex and Mark and John, they are the isnad, the chain of narration. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, like 1 + 1 = 2, for example, hypothetically. So this statement, 1 + 1 = 2, the actual statement that the Prophet ﷺ said, we consider that the matn. The matn is the actual wording that the Prophet ﷺ said, and the isnad, or the sanad, is the chain of narration, the individuals who pass down this information. And now all of these ahadith, the statements and actions of the Prophet ﷺ, are like generally divided into two main categories, authentic and weak. Now obviously there is a lot of more different categories, but I don't want to go into too deep because I know people will get lost. So we'll just stick with those two main categories. So the authentic ahadith, what are these authentic ahadith? The authentic hadith is that which is transmitted from the Prophet ﷺ by a person who is trustworthy. So a person who is known in his community to be a trustworthy individual, who is a good individual, and he's a practicing Muslim, and he is a strong memorizer, adlun Debit. So the first condition is he is a trustworthy individual. Second is that his memorization and memory is very strong. If it becomes weaker, then he's no longer fitting that criteria. So whoever he narrates from has to also have these two conditions, has to be strong in memory and has to be a good individual, known in the community to be a good individual. And the chain has to be connected. So the chain has to go all the way back to the Prophet ﷺ. There cannot be any people missing in the chain. You cannot narrate from someone that was not living at your time, that was living 200 years before you, because you cannot meet him or you cannot take information from him. So that person it has to be possible for you to meet the individual. Not only that, but also the chain has to go all the way back to the Prophet. So if the information reaches a companion of the Prophet only, but it does not reach the Prophet ﷺ, and he doesn't say the Prophet said, then that's a statement of a companion. It is not a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. If it reaches a student of a companion, then it is not a narration of the Prophet ﷺ. Rather, it is a statement of a follower of companion of the Prophet ﷺ. So this is what authentic hadith is. That which is narrated by a trustworthy, just individual, well memorized, a strong memory, who narrates from someone like him, tracing all the way back to the Prophet ﷺ. And it cannot be irregular, and they cannot have any defects. That narration cannot have any defects. Now, defects and irregularity, these are like big things that there's a whole science written on that. But I'll give a very basic example of shudud, which is, for example, an irregularity, is where you have one person who told the story, and then there was 6 people sitting down. 5 of those people narrated the story in a way, and one individual narrated the same story, but he added extra information that the other 5 did not say. That would mean that this extra part that was added is either a mistake, or a irregularity is something that is the narrator have made a mistake in attributing it to that narrator when he did not narrate it. So we know that through tracing all of those different chains of narrations, and we look at those people who narrated the hadith, and we see, like, if majority are narrating one thing and just one person who had an extra statement that the other people did not narrate, even though they're all heard the story from the same person, then we say that extra statement that was made is irregular, and that statement can be rejected. Now also the idea of hidden defects. There are defects that can remove the reliability of a hadith, and there are defects that does not remove the reliability of the hadith. So the hadith can be authentic even though if there is a hidden defect. For instance, if we say that the narrator says, I heard from Ibn Umar, which is a companion of the Prophet, and he actually heard it from Abu Hurairah. So both of those two different people are reliable. But the narrator, there's a hidden defect there. He made a mistake and he heard it from a wrong person. He did not hear it from Abdullah ibn Umar. He actually heard it from Abu Hurairah, but he mixed the two individuals. So that's a defect, but it's a hidden defect. Another hidden defect, for example, is someone narrates information. He attributes it to the Prophet, while actually he was not from the Prophet ﷺ, but it was a story that was heard from the people of the scriptures. That would be considered a hidden defect, and it will affect the hadith. Now the hadith is no longer an authentic narration that you have to believe in. Rather, it's information taken from the people of the scriptures. So as I said, I don't want to go into very strict details to show you how much those people who are rejecting hadith have no clue of how much work the people have put to authenticate these narrations. And for us to come to this conclusion that these narrations have to be historically reliable. So it's not just like we found the letter and the king was signing it, but we know who the king is. We have the full biography of the king. We know who wrote the letter. Which handler of the king wrote the letter. We know his student who took the letter from him, and we know his son and his son and his son and his friend and whoever narrated the information until it reaches today, seeing it in front of our own eyes. This is our criteria. Not the criteria of the weak Western history that you accept, but our criteria is even further and much more stricter for us to accept anything coming from the Prophet ﷺ or not coming from the Prophet ﷺ. And how precise were those people actually? In passing down the information. I'll give like two very basic.
وفرق بين من تمشي بستر ومن تمشي بغير الستر فينا عباءتها على الرأس ارتياح لعين الناظرين الصالحين لعين الناظرين الصالحين يراها الناس جوهرة وتبقى كلؤلؤة بعين الناظرين ولم تبرز مفاتنها بيوم لأن النار مثوى الخاسرين لأن النار مثوى الخاسرين وقدوتها رسول الله دوما وتحذو حذو أم المؤمنين فحق لمثلها ألا تبادي إذا انتقدوا هداها الناقصين إذا انتقدوا هداها الناقصين